Hi, you're tuned to KBOO Portland. I'm Stephanie Potter, and this is The Recovery Zone, a show that explores ways we might heal our world. Because, no doubt about it, we're facing a tremendous number of problems right now. I just read where the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists set the atomic clock to Doomsday. I guess it just moved it up 2 more minutes from 5 minutes to midnight to 3 minutes to midnight because we're not dealing with nuclear arms piles or we're not dealing with the climate crisis. And so we've got some guests here that think that they can solve everything. And I mean, as unbelievable as it sounds, it's kind of interesting to really think about what they've come up with. So my first guest here is Perry Gruber. And he's the one who's actually created this system called Copiosis that we're going to be talking about today. And he's here with Ray Curtis. And Ray Curtis, I guess you're just his right-hand man, basically, helping him make it happen. And on the phone, we have 2 people, too, right? We have Erica Charlesworth. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. And Lynne Haskell.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so we've got everybody. And Lynne and Erica are talking to us from Chico, California. So this is getting a little more widespread, I hear. But it started here in Portland just a year and a half ago, Perry?
Yeah, back in 2013, I think is when I started on July 4th, Independence Day.
And how many people are involved in it now?
We have about 35 now with the software development team on board, and then another 200 around the world that are paying attention to what we're doing.
Checking in on your website and that kind of thing. And the website is like open source, so you're just totally willing to get more and more people involved in it, right?
Yeah, well, the website, the actual activity takes place on our Facebook page, our social, Copiosis social page, but the website provides some pretty much one-way communication out to the world so people can find out what we're doing, and then the Facebook page is where all the discourse actually happens.
And where did you get this word copiosis? What's that about?
Well, I was looking for a term that would encompass the innovation in terms of a description, and I was using Google Translate to figure out the words, just like I do in the startup world when I try and find a startup name. And so I typed in the word abundance and wealthy, and one of the words that came up was copious, and the root word of that word is copios, or the plural word of that is copiosis, and so I selected that because it seemed to fit best.
Okay, so we're all going to be rich.
Yes, we are actually. Yeah, we sure are.
Okay, so but starting, you also refer apparently to something called the shift, and could you tell us a little about that? Like, there's some kind of shift that you think is taking place right now? Absolutely. The shift is occurring on many levels, but and each of my team members here focus on a different perspective based on their own experience. But from my experience, the shift that is occurring is the natural tendency of people to, not all people, but some people, to look at the way the world is right now and ask for something better or try to make something better as kind of like a springboard from what they see. And more people are beginning to do that. I'm not the only one, of course, the Paul Hawkins. There are more famous people out there that are doing what I'm doing in terms of coming up with alternatives that could replace the status quo. And that's the shift that I see happening. And that's even the recovery zone, healing our world. Exactly. Trying to create an alternative to what's out there. Yes. In fact, all of the people that you have on this program are, I would describe as that kind of people. Shift people. Yes. Okay. And Shifters. Yeah, shifty. Yes. Shifty. So, but basically, and we're trying to make it better because what we're seeing around us isn't working, as I just started out saying. Someone I saw actually was on your website. He said, fiddling with the system we've got now is like painting a sinking ship. And could you, both of you, kind of address, or all 4 of you actually, what this sinking ship is that we're on right now? Well, Ray, do you want to take that? Because I have a different perspective on whether we're on a sinking ship or not. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you look at the things that are attacking our world, you mentioned some of them earlier. It's in the last 80 years, I believe, that we are most threatened. Okay, we have gotten the ability in the last 80 years to essentially destroy our world, either through nuclear holocaust or through climate change. That has happened basically in the last 80 years. The converse side of that, or the optimistic side of that, is that in the last 80 years, we've also developed the technologies and the techniques to resolve most of those issues. And so we need to
concentrate on solving the problems rather than concentrate on describing the problems.
Dude, you nailed that totally. So that's the perspective I come from. It's like I don't pay any attention to all the things that people think are going wrong, because focusing on those things doesn't serve me. It puts me in a powerless position. So instead, I focus on the things that are going right and the things that I'm doing that will counter the things that people think are going wrong. I see the things that people say that are going wrong as catalysts or trigger points that cause people like me to say, well, what can we do right? What can we change? What can we put in place that will make the things that people think are going wrong actually springboards, so that when we're looking back 100 years from now, we say, wow, if those things hadn't happened, we might have still been on the same track. So that's the way I see the world.
How can we fix this? And Erica, Ann, and Lynn, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd love to add something. I kind of like to take both what Perry and Ray said, and I sort of look at it as that right now we're in a lot of chaos, and that's sort of normal in any kind of, viewpoint of what we go through in life when we go through some immense change. Right before you're about to come to a more stable place, you go through something extremely chaotic. And I certainly look into all the areas that are shifting right now, whether it's, intense globalization or shifts in the media, technological changes, climate change, etc. It all feels so chaotic. And one thing that attracts me about Copiosis is, as I'm participating in it, it's like making sense of it and people coming together and creating some kind of order out of apparent chaos. So that's how I experience it.
Yeah, sort of like the birth process is kind of messy, but then something beautiful happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly
like that, right.
Okay, so Lynn, let's get into it. What is copiosis? And all of you can start telling me about it.
Okay, well, why don't I start? So copiosis, it's two things. One is the organization itself, and the other is the innovation. And people kind of confuse those two things. So the organization itself is the people that are participating in making the innovation happen. And like I said, it's about 35 people right now, and we operate in this process we call Stigmergy, which is there's no formal hierarchy in the organization. Everyone is free to do.
What was that again?
Stigmergy, Stigmergy.
Oh, new word. Okay.
Yeah, it's a process by which things naturally happen when people take the initiative to do what they feel moved to do, and over time, what you want done is accomplished. So we don't have a hierarchy. We don't have edicts that I pass down to others to do. People just naturally do what they want to do, and if they don't want to do something, they don't do that. So that's the organization. The organization is responsible for implementing the innovation. The innovation itself is a new system that is designed around a new concept, a concept that replaces money. So in our system, there is no money. The concept is called net benefit reward. And essentially what happens is when I do something good for you, Stephanie, when I benefit your life, the society that Copiosis creates rewards me with this net benefit. Underlying the net benefit reward system is a system of necessities: food, clothing, healthcare, education, and housing. And all of those things are provided to each of us at no cost to us. So with that in place, we're free to do things that benefit other people. And the more we do things that benefit other people or the planet, the more net benefit we earn. So the net benefit, how it replaces money, is it allows access to things that do not fall in the necessities categories. So we call those luxuries. So for example, if I don't have one of these, but if I want a Ferrari or something like that, or more ecologically, let's say I want a net zero home as a luxury item.
Or solar power on your roof.
Or well, maybe not necessarily that, but let's say a luxury item like a mansion, as opposed to like standard housing that I might be living in. I would have to do a number of things to benefit a number of people in order to earn the net benefit reward to satisfy what we call the gateway, or the amount of net benefit you have to earn in order to take possession of that luxury. Solar power panels, just to touch on that real quickly, in Copiosis will come naturally as a part of any house, because the producers in our society, they earn net benefit to the degree that they do one of two things. One, reduce the consumption of materials in producing the things they produce. And two, creating something that maximizes the benefit to humanity and the planet. So if you think about those two things, it makes total sense for every house to have a solar panel or more on it. actually every house to be a net zero or maybe net positive generator of energy, because it's those type of homes are benefiting the planet the most, thereby earning the people who contributed to making that house net benefit reward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And actually, I would like the listeners, if you're listening out there and want to call in with your questions, the number here at KBOO is 503-231-8187, and we'll ask these Copiosis people how this can all work, which is probably a huge issue with it. So basically, as I see it then, people are living, they've got all their necessities, which is food, clothing, shelter,
education,
housing, shelter and education and healthcare are covered. And then after that, anything is a reward. And you're only rewarded if you're doing something that helps the world.
Or people, yeah.
So I mean, that sounds great, but I guess a lot of this is how do you decide what is considered a reward and what's not, and who's making these decisions?
Right. So we have a please feel free to jump in anytime.
Go ahead. Okay. You're doing fine.
Okay, so we have a piece of software that we've designed that basically runs the entire system. The software is based on an algorithm that I've created, which takes into account a number of variables, like your actions impact on the environment, your actions impact on people, your actions impact on the geography in which you live, the amount of resources you're using to create your action, those type of things. There's a lot of other variables in that algorithm, but the software is built around this algorithm. And when you take an action, your action is measured by what we call the payer organization or the payer administration. And this organization
That's the payer organization?
Okay. And this organization is made up of volunteers. It's all volunteer, completely open. Anyone can be a part of it, much like community-supported radio. And yeah, exactly. And so these people, millions of people in a given nation, are responsible for observing the activity that goes on within the country, and basically recording the activity that happens. When they record the activity is fed through the inputs are fed through the algorithm, and outcomes.
Giant data algorithm.
Yes, exactly. And then out comes in that benefit reward. And so that's how the decisions are made. Now, some people will ask, well, what about the hard decisions, like the moral decisions and those kind of things, like should an abortion earn net benefit reward? And we have citizen panels or citizen juries that are incorporated into the payer organization, where citizens of the nation, of a community, are brought in on a periodic basis to make those kind of decisions, and then those decisions determine the values that are assigned to the inputs on the algorithm. So the algorithm is a living algorithm. It changes with the times as people's mores and morality changes. The algorithm can change too, and because it's open source, everyone has input to that. So like you learn, for instance, that something you thought that was harmless, like, I don't know, some pesticide being used on plants or something. Yeah.
Oh, this doesn't cause any harm. Later you learn that it causes harm, and then that gets fed into the algorithm. So it continues to change.
Exactly. And the really cool thing about how net benefit reward works is because all your necessities are taken care of, there's no hurry to reward you with net benefit reward when you take an act that benefits another person. So
because you're not gonna starve to death.
Exactly. And so you have the payer organization has plenty of time to determine whether or not your action is detrimental or positive. And so many of the larger net benefit rewards that would be distributed are distributed way after the fact, as people get a better handle on what the impact of an action is.
If I could just add something, is that the payer organization is not a governmental organization. You mentioned that in Copiosis, there's no longer money, and there's no longer government the way that we know it. So we do have citizens, of course, contributing to make these really, really important decisions to determine how the algorithm works. But this changes, and it changes all the time, and people who are making the decisions change. And there is not maybe there would be some regulations at some point, but as a rule, as a regulation, there's no more regulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that accurate, Perry?
Yeah, that is totally.
So, well, I just want to like step in here and let listeners know you're listening to the Recovery Zone on KBOO Portland. It's FM 90.7. I'm speaking with Perry Gruber, who founded Copiosis. He's here in the studio with Ray Curtis, who's also involved, and on the phone in Chico, we have Erica Charlesworth and Lynne Haskell, who are involved with this organization down in Chico, California. So theoretically, this could all work. I did hear you talk about nations, which means, I guess, that there are still nations, but somehow there's nations with no government, or I mean, how does that?
Yeah, there are several stages at which the world will go through. Notice I'm speaking.
Oh, and I just want to also let listeners know, call in with your questions, 503-231-8187.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's these stages that the world will go through as we transition from what we have to a Copiosis economic system. And in that transition, there'll be periods where nations will still exist. But ultimately, what happens after in the post-transitional state of Copiosis, there are no nations in formal terms, but there are probably parties, citizens who represent the collective geography to other geographies when they conduct trade, for example. So there will be representatives, but those representatives will have no authority, nothing similar to the authority that governments have today. Everyone will be free to do what they want when they want to, with no regulation.
It sounds like sort of a mix of libertarianism, anarchism. I mean, it's even a little bit of socialism and communism. I mean, but it's own...
And a big dose of capitalism.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you still have
really got it. And I think that's what's one of the things that's so exciting about this is that there's something in it that gets to the core of what what so many people really want. So we can't point the finger anymore and say, "Oh, those libertarians over there, are they crazy? Oh, those socialists, are they nuts?" Because everybody, there's something in this that appeals to everybody. It's really fascinating. That's what I'm learning as I'm talking to people more and more about it.
Well, the little part that appealed to me was definitely that it's a system that sort of, instead of a system that sort of makes us sociopaths, like stomping on each other and getting ahead, it seems like it's a kind of a system that makes us nicer to each other.
Well, it's designed to reward good behavior. In today's system, there's nothing that rewards good behavior. If you're working for money, money could be good, it could be evil, it can be anything you want it to be. Your behavior can be the same way. You're not necessarily rewarded for good behavior, certainly not in our economic system. And so how do you disincent bad behavior and reward good behavior? And that's a large portion of the goal here, is to make it easy for people to do good.
Sort of make us kinder and gentler.
Well, it's not
the opportunity.
Yes, it's not making us that way. So what's happened, in my opinion, in society today with the dominance of the Western economic model is that it has, as in your words, stamped down on the natural human tendency to be nice. And that's because it's hard to be nice in capitalism, because you have to earn a buck, and to get a buck, you often have to take it from somebody else.
Sociopaths rise to the top.
In some ways, yeah. Sociopathic behavior is another thing that I think rises out of capitalism. It's not natural to humanity, I think. And so in Copiosis, what we do, as Ray was saying, and this is the major difference between money and net benefit reward, is that you can't earn net benefit reward if you're being a jerk. You just can't. And you can live and be a jerk. You can live and be a sociopath, because people are going to feed you and house you and provide medical care, because they're going to earn net benefit when they do that. But you can't really get ahead in Copiosis being that kind of person. And what happens when that is put in place, in my opinion, is that everyone reconnects with their heart and becomes nice and becomes helping out a person who helps out other people. And that happens more and more and more as people get that the only way you're going to earn that benefit reward and consume the luxuries that you want, and everyone's going to want the luxuries, because the luxuries that are created in Copiosis far exceed the capability of the luxuries that are created today. So people are going to want those things, and the only way they're going to be able to get them is to earn that benefit reward. And the only way you're going to get that benefit reward is to be nice to the planet and be nice to people.
And I've read somewhere that people are actually happier when they're nice to each other. I mean, maybe we'll finally have that happiness quotient society, or what is that, the happiness index?
Yes.
But
Stephanie, I'd like to say that to me, when we're talking about the shift, this is, for me, the greatest shift. It's a cultural shift that's going on where we get back to focusing on what's right, what Perry said. And it's the most exciting thing because then we live more in the potential of who we are as human beings.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great. However,
here
comes another one. It's like there is this thing with private property. I mean, I guess people still, like, somehow there's change takes place, but we still own property. One little question I had about that is, so, okay, what happens to, like, our national park system or some of the stuff that I really love that government does do? You know, it doesn't do everything great, but there are a few things.
Well, ownership takes on a new kind of meaning in the sense that ownership is not today. When you have ownership, you have the right to do anything with it. Okay, you can destroy it. You can
tar sands.
Yeah, right. And so there are lots of ways to look at that are increasingly negative, but when you're looking at property ownership from a Copiosis viewpoint, you're looking at help me out here,
it's
Perry.
a stewardship relationship
process
with the property. So in Copiosis, private property ownership is more like stewardship, and this is something that Ray came up with very early on in the definition. So when you own property in Copiosis, you still are governed by the net benefit reward formula. And so if you own that property and you do what we do today, which is you just keep that property yourself and not allow other people to use it, then it's not going to benefit you very much other than owning it and demonstrating the prestige of your conspicuous consumption. In Copiosis, if you own something, it makes much more sense to let as many people use that thing as possible because it's benefiting people when you do that. It also makes sense to use that private property in the maximum way that benefits the planet because when you do that, it earns net benefit reward for you when you do that.
But would the parks just disappear?
No. So what will happen, in my opinion, is so that we've had this question a lot, and if you imagine the park system, and someone told me the name of the bureau that runs the park, the national parks. What is that? It's the
Bureau of Land
Management. The Bureau of Land Management.
And the National Forest
And the
Service.
National Forest Service, yes. So the people that work on the ground in those two agencies, the ones that actually manage the parks, the physical parks, in Copiosis, it makes logical sense that those people, the district rangers, the park managers, those people would own those parks. Now, the people that own those parks, they're not capitalists. Most of them are naturalists or some variation of that. So those people who know the park like the back of their hand, who love being in the park setting, aren't going to take it and pave it and put in a parking lot. They're going to use it in my opinion, in the best way that serves the land and the people who use the land, without any political influence that often kind of messes that up. And so when the park ranger owns a given park, it's way too large for herself to own it. So she has to divvy up the park, in my opinion, to the land managers that work for that that used to work for that. They no longer work for other people in Copiosis. Different story. But so they distribute the land to the individual land managers, and those people are responsible for their specific little parts of that land. Now, does that mean that the Yellowstone National Park is going to radically change?
Yeah, clear cutting.
I doubt it, because the people who are currently managing those lands love those lands. I know a guy in a small group that I participate with twice a week who is a land manager for the Forest Service here in Oregon, and he can tell you every species of plant and animal and tree and everything about that land that he manages, and you can tell that he loves that land. Now, he has a better perspective, in my opinion, on how to use that land than I do, because he's on that land every day, and he's also a scientist. So it makes sense to entrust him with the stewardship of that property, because there's no one else that knows how to use that property better than he does. So these people in the Forest Service, we often talk about the government as if it's this homogenous group of people that are either evil or good, depending on where you land on the political spectrum. And in reality, the majority of them are just people trying to do the best they can with the resources they have. It's the political influence that turns their decisions into decisions we might not necessarily like. But if you set those people free to manage that land the way they think is best, I believe we'll have much better parks than we do in today's climate when you're having to deal with the political machinations that occur when one party takes over from another.
And then hopefully you would have members of, let's say, the Forest Service, the former Forest Service, who would also be volunteering on the payer organization and really influencing how we conceive of the importance of those resources.
That's absolutely correct. In fact, it's not even a hope. It will happen because the people, imagine, today you're a Forest Service, and I don't have to imagine. I know a woman who works in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department here in Oregon. When I used to work at the Bonneville Power Administration, she's a left person. She would often complain whenever the right people on the right got in office because it would totally change the decisions that were being made on the resources that the U.S. F&W took care of. And I knew that in her heart she was passionate about managing the resources in the best interest of the planet. But she can't when the Republicans are in office because in some ways they're not about that. I'm trying to be gentle to the Republicans. So if she were freed from the political machinations of the political process to manage the resources that U.S. Fish and Wildlife manages, the decisions that she would make would be in the interest of the planet. They wouldn't be in the interest of corporate interest.
And the data algorithm would really push that through.
Absolutely.
Somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's
that's the feedback mechanism.
Yes.
That rewards the good
algorithm.
behavior.
Yes.
And gives you a positive direction.
Yes.
Right. And that actually gets us back to values, though. Like, who's really deciding what our values are? Like, are our values having more wood taking out of the woods so that we can build more houses, or keep the... I mean, it gets... This sounds like a very complicated part of it.
It's not complicated at all. So go ahead,
Well, down in Chico, we one way to get interest and to bring Perry down to be able to talk to us so we could meet Perry finally is we had a tour of Copiosis. And it was very simple. But when you take somebody through and explain that in our society, this new society, all your necessities are taken care of, and I can't even remember exactly how we went through, but if your necessities are taken care of, you reach a place where you just realize you are now free to live without worry of constant fear. If your necessities are taken care of, your families are, people around you, it just relieves a tremendous burden.
Yeah.
And once you have that level of freedom, you have now a sudden incredible amount of passion and energy that you can put toward being a steward of the planet and being looking after the people around you. It just frees you up so much. So I'm not sure.
No, that's the thing. So the challenge that a lot of the questions that we get about Copiosis in the negative, like, how are you going to deal with this? People are asking that question from the perspective of being immersed in the yes. And so when you think about the fact that system is no longer in place, these kind of questions kind of fall away because people aren't under the pressure where they believe in order to get my policy passed, the other policy has to die. Or if the other policy passes, my policy gets compromised in some negative way. That doesn't happen in Copiosis. People make their moral decisions, their individual moral decisions on their own, and they're free to do that. When it comes to there actually is no real collective decision in Copiosis because it's all individual. It's your decision, your moral decisions impact your life and your property. Anybody else's property and life, your moral decisions don't have an impact. And that's one of the challenges that Copiosis brings. So those people who, God bless them, those people who don't want other people to get abortion, in Copiosis, they're not going to have any ability to force or coerce or try to limit other people's freedom to get an abortion if that's what they want. And this is one of the challenges that Copiosis brings, is that you're going to have to realize that your morality is yours. It's not anybody else's, and it's not your responsibility to put your morality on somebody else.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the anarchistic and everything. But anyway, I want to let listeners know again, you're tuned to KBOO Portland 90.7, and we're talking about an alternative economic system. Perry Gruber, who designed it, is here. He's called it Copiosis, which means abundance, and also with him is Ray Curtis.
It's my long lost brother.
Yeah, not married. And then we also have Erica Charlesworth, and Lynne Haskell on the phone talking to us from Chico, California. And
Stephanie, I would like to say it's important the kind of questions we allow ourselves to live in, and that if we're not consumed with the day-to-day grind or soul-sucking jobs or whatever, or the politics and all of the distractions, we live in different questions, and the questions are, what am I passionate about?
Right.
What do I really want to do with my life? Why am I here?
Yep.
What are the gifts that I have to give? And if we lived out of those questions, we would be different people.
Yes.
And that is the shift that we're taking. And Copiosis, this beginning stage, gives us breathing room to start dreaming again of answering those questions. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
And actually, like what you said, I was in Australia and some friends were there, and one of them was on the dole, but what the dole meant was that he was working for in an anti-GMO volunteer thing, because and Nicole's on the line. But anyway, I really got the sense there that people weren't as stressed as they are here. I think, having some kind of backup, like the dole or whatever, is incredible for people, for reducing stress. Anyway, Nicole is on the line. What would you like to ask, Nicole?
I think this sounds very interesting. I guess my kind of idea is always going from the place of radical relocalization, because we're wasting so many resources kind of shipping consumer goods around the world. But the two questions I would have would be, one thing is non-humans are often not brought up, and I'm concerned that we don't leave wild spaces, and wolves are really in danger, and among other species as well. And also the Native American perspective, too, who the land was all basically stolen from, and how that sort of question fits in as well. The last thing I'll say is that I don't really see national forests as being well managed sometimes. They're kind of just tree farms, and they're sprayed with pesticides, and, anyway, that was a little bit jumbled, but I guess my main questions would be around non-humans and the Native perspective.
The Native perspective?
Native Americans.
Okay, got it, yeah.
So like nobody owns anything, it's all commons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I say something about that? Because in Chico we have, or in Butte County, a lot of various tribes. And given that anyone can be on the payer system and be placing value on things within the log algorithm, they would be involved, the people that I know, because they care about this. This is an avenue that actually would make sense for them to participate in.
Yeah, that's a better answer than I was going to give with regard to the Native Americans. Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, the payer organization is 100% open to anyone who wants to participate, and if you have a vested interest in something happening, it makes sense for you to work for the payer organization.
And they are totally 100% invested in our Mother Earth.
Yeah. With regard to the non-humans inhabitants of our planet, this is really interesting. We get this question sometimes too. The net benefit algorithm takes into account the
suffering.
Well, not so much suffering, but the benefit that accrues to the planet. And we, at least I know, I think my team would agree with me, that we live in a closed system, and we are dependent on everything, including non-human species, in order to have a thriving ecosystem. And so
it's about the thriving ecosystem.
Yeah.
The more diversity you have within your ecosystem, the better off your ecosystem is.
Yep. And that goes even down deep into the soil.
Deep
Absolutely.
into the soil.
Absolutely.
High into the air, throughout the oceans, and all the rest of it. I mean, an ecosystem is the planet that we live on.
Yeah. And so so imagine, was it Nicole who's on the phone?
Nicole.
Yeah. Imagine, Nicole, if you have a passion for animals and you currently work in somewhere else doing something else, it doesn't make sense for you to be working in that job when you can be helping what you're passionate about. And that's where you're gonna create the greatest benefit for humanity and the planet, is working on those things that you're super passionate about. And in Copiosis, you can do that. And if you benefit any species that you want to take care of, or flora or whatever, if you benefit that thing and that thing is the benefit you've produced is demonstrable, you can earn net benefit reward from that. So you no longer have to work this job that you work to pay your bills. You don't have any debt, by the way. So you can do these things that you're passionate about, do them well, and make a lot of net benefit reward. So not only can you specifically take care of the non-human species, but you can, I don't like using this phrase, but you can earn a good living doing it.
And yeah,
I think Nicole's question also gets to something that I hear over and over again, is that with this system, and when Lynne was speaking about it too, when you get to work on something you're really, really deeply in alignment with, there's that feeling of, I trust that we are all going to take care of these incredible animals. That we just naturally want to. We sort of return to kind of a more natural state, which I think also goes to your questions about Native Americans, at least our mythology. I don't know if true or not about what it means to be a Native American or an indigenous culture. Somehow trust in a kind of natural rhythm that we're sort of out of whack when we have money involved all the time, because money creates this feeling of mistrust all the time between us. We're just always concerned that whatever good we're doing for each other, it's for the money. And when you remove the money, you just get back to, it's a lot simpler, the human relationship.
Well, one of the other things about the net benefit reward system is that it takes into account the negative externalities. So in addition to the things that are positive about what you're doing, it also takes into account the negative externalities that are the results of your actions. So while it may have a positive benefit, it may also have a negative benefit, or a negative consequence, excuse me. And those things can balance out. You may end up with no net benefit reward simply because the things that you're doing are positive.
Are net negative.
Harmful,
net positive.
And and so I'm thinking, there's so many things I can think of, like factory farming and But I want to let listeners know again, you can call in at 503-231-8187 with your questions, and I want to get a couple. Oh boy, because there's a couple things I really want to make sure we get to here. But who's the caller this time? Victoria. What would you like to say, Victoria? Hello?
Really want to just outline a few things that I believe in. The world, basically, the cause of the war and the disproportionate benefits, like you're saying, net benefits to the taking away, is the fear of differentness. And I would be curious to hear how the transition to the copiousness would be based on people's belief systems, their personal survival, their trust issues, and how would that transition happen?
Yeah, that's one of the big questions. How is this going to happen?
Yeah, so the transition is already happening. Conversations like this, the activity that we have about to launch actually it's launching already in Chico, and the activity we're going to be launching this year here in Portland.
That was a demonstration project.
Now this is just the U.S. you're talking.
Yeah, that's one of the big questions. How is this going to happen?
Yeah, so the transition is already happening. Conversations like this, the activity that we have about to launch actually it's launching. The new reality that Copiosis is going to bring.
Well, just disbanding our whole, federal bank money reserve
that
system.
Actually is going to be really easy. Yeah, that's really easy. The parts that Victoria is talking about are the hard parts, the parts of
learning to trust.
Yes, learning to trust, learning to realize that there is no difference. These kind of things, and part of the differences that people see in the international sphere are exacerbated by what Erica was talking about a minute ago. This scarcity that results from money being the dominant means of transaction.
I have a little scenario before you go on. I've been in natural disasters in my life, various times, mostly when I was young. The last 10 years I haven't been in any. But what I witnessed in a natural disaster is that everything drops. All the fears, all the belief systems, all the religious differences, all the world viewpoints, and people get together and help each other and do whatever they can, whatever their imaginations, whatever their physical beings can provide, and they gather together in small communities to survive together.
Yep.
Yeah,
Correct.
and we're kind of almost in a maybe unnatural disaster.
What happened was just this enormous, loving, beautiful, encompassing, healing effect. And then once things went, somewhat back to normalcy, then everybody just split apart and focused right back to survival of their own feet, their own bodies, their own families. And it was just so sad for me.
Well, what that tells you about the human condition is that cooperation and togetherness are our natural state.
Yes.
And it's only when you come back to the, quote, unnatural world that we've managed to create around us that we then have those problems re-manifest themselves.
So do you think it's sort of a habitual thing?
It's part of the society, socio-economic system that we've built around us.
Yeah.
If you change the socio-economic system that people engage in, then you will change people's behavior.
And that's why
what I love about this conversation is that no individual is being blamed. We're looking at our system
That's right.
Right.
as a whole, and we're saying, wow, we don't have to believe
In this system.
That's right.
That's correct.
And this is why I say that we are the only solution that solves all the problems at once.
Well, tell me more about this demonstration.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're
project.
welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Victoria.
thank you a lot, Victoria. How can you even demonstrate it with the whole mess around it being, in a system like this?
I'll let Erica take that one. Erica?
Well, one of the things that attracted me to Copiosis right away was learning that there was going to be a demonstration project in Kenton, because it's one thing to talk about all this and have these great conversations, but then when I learned that there's actually was going to be a project, that was really inspiring.
Kenton, where's that?
Kenton
North
is in
Portland.
Portland.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And we're doing really two different things. And one in Kenton, and then inspired by Kenton, we started a project in Chico. Do you want me to go ahead and speak to Kenton, Perry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in Kenton, the project is around the hub is a preschool, and it's a Waldorf Methods preschool where the families are involved already in helping each other, volunteering for the school, and doing a lot of things together. It's a really tightly knit community. So that's number one, is you need community and you need relationships in order to start a transition process. So in Kenton, when the project starts, and it'll start once our software is ready, and I believe it's ready to be tested beginning of next week, so that's really exciting. The people who are involved, and I think we're starting very small with this project, maybe 5 to 10 families, will record, basically the favors that they're doing for each other, anything involved in, pointing toward the 5 necessities also.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the other part is that once people record the hours that they're putting in to helping each other and volunteering for each other and for the school, then they'll accumulate the net benefit reward. And right now in Kenton, the idea is that local businesses who are interested in what we're doing would offer a discount on their services as the luxury reward, the luxury exchange, for the net benefit reward that people accumulate. Then they could access luxuries in the form of discounts on businesses.
Yeah. So when you earn net benefit reward in the Kenton project, you can take your net benefit if your child is going to the preschool and receive a discount on the tuition to the preschool. We'll be recruiting other businesses in the Kenton neighborhood to do the same thing as a way to put value on the net benefit reward system.
Got it. I just want to pause again, and we do have a caller on the line too. You're listening to KBOO Portland. This is the Recovery Zone here at 90.7 on your FM dial. I'm Stephanie Potter, and we're talking about Copiosis with founder Perry Gruber, Ray Curtis, and Erica Charlesworth, and Lynne Haskell on the phone from Chico. And we do have a caller on the line. Could you, who is that now? Celicia, would you like to ask your question?
Hi, it's not really a question that I have, but one thing that I really am loving about the sentence is that it seems like it's really combining my two favorite things to think about in psychology and sociology, which in psychology, it's the negative and positive reinforcements, which so strongly increase the dopamine levels to make us want to be a part of continually doing good things that give us pleasure and help others. But what I'm really thinking that causes the appeal, besides all the combining of or the taking away the different governments, is that it's seeming like it's forming a combination between the mechanical and organic solidarity. Because we're trying to reform the way the industrialized society is running by taking away all of that money that is creating a kind of looser bond between people by making it so that we can all act as a unit and choose to do what we want to do by creating a more solid ground.
Does that make sense?
That makes total sense and great basis in psychology. Yeah. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that because that's my background too, and this is what's really drawn me to Copiosis and also some of the questions that I have, and that the first thing that comes to my mind is that this is not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Right. And and that we have a huge population that is damaged by our systems, and that there is going to be healing time needed for them to actually then start contributing. So I just see it as a process, but we're turning the corner and moving in a positive direction instead of continuing the ongoing damage that we do to one another. Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that you're probably familiar with is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that this speaks directly to that in the sense that once you take care of the lower needs, which are those things that are required to keep us alive, food, shelter, clothing, etc., then you can start moving, and you do automatically, as a person, start moving to the higher needs, which are self-expression and those sorts of things. But you have to have the freedom to do that, and that's one of the things that Copiosis does, is it gives you the room and the freedom to make that movement.
So there's no more such thing as a wage slave.
No, there are no jobs at all, actually. People just do what they want to do, and they get rewarded for it. If they want to come together as a group and form a cooperative around a specific project or goal or product, they can do that. But no one is working for anybody else or anything like that.
I was actually thinking about something along the lines of this earlier today, of how I just wanted to have a society where we wouldn't have to worry about our now daily stressors of paying bills, having to go to work, having all of these restrictions that make it so that we can't really do what we want to do.
So
along with that goes with the whole education and health. If we have to pay, at least in the U.S., so much money to just do what we dream of doing that we think maybe can benefit other people's health, having all that capitalistic type of money, not to sound harsh, but having to take away and making it free and having it be part of the necessities for us to grow and actually contribute, I think it'll make it so we can have healthier people, healthier animal, healthier planet to help us actually just keep going as a species instead of just diminishing.
Can you move to Chico? Because we're looking for more and more people just like this. It's part of our demonstration project.
Maybe. I mean, at the rate this global warming is happening, it may become an ice age over here. So.
Yeah, you might want to come up.
Get somewhere where it's warm.
So you really do believe that this can happen. What if some of the first things? I guess this demonstration project is maybe one of the first things that needs to happen. But how do we just push it through?
First of all, there's nothing keeping this from happening. So where I work in the startup world, I see things start from a glint in someone's eye and become a multi-billion-dollar organization. And we're following the exact same path.
But this is changing a whole lot of structures that are in place right now.
Yeah.
What would have to change first, for instance?
Well, what has to change first is we have to have more people aware that this thing exists, and that's exactly what we're doing here.
The system we're in now isn't the only way to do things.
No, we don't. They don't need to know that.
Oh, okay.
All they need to know is that they can live their lives and have all of their necessities provided at no cost to them. Mm-hmm. They don't need to know anything about the current system different than what they know now.
And I see the first step is we talk differently to each other.
Yes.
We have different kind of conversations.
Right, like I found it, just talking to you guys, I realized how negative I sound. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the first step. And then it's just about speaking with people like Victoria and Nicole and the other caller and having them get inspired by what we're doing. And then eventually, let me tell you, the four people on the call on this interview right now, Ray and Erica and Lynn, I didn't go out and find these people. These people came to the organization realizing that this resonated with them. And in my opinion, this innovation resonates with every human being. If you're a human being, this is going to resonate with you.
Wow.
And so the idea is get it out in front of people, just like we're doing with you, Stephanie. I bet you're feeling a little bit transformed as a result of this conversation. So get it out in front of people, let them experience the transformative nature of it, and they will naturally come to contribute to it in the way that works for them. That's what everyone on the team is doing.
And one of the things that I've always...
I want to speak a little bit to what we're doing in Chico, because it's just so exciting.
Another demonstration project?
Well, right, and we're working up toward it. So first, some of us, I met Perry online through a social media site, and I brought a couple of my friends, and we started attending Skype meetings with Perry, and we decided we just have to meet him. So we had him come down from Portland, and we had this Chico tour. And then from that, and maybe we had 300 people in our various networks who we invited. We wound up with an email list of about 45 people who are really actively interested. And now we're holding monthly meetings. The first couple were getting to know each other and around the intention for our group, and now around each of the necessities. So with each meeting, we're inviting all these people from our community, for example, at the next one, that are related to food, whatever's going on in Chico around food. And let me tell you, Chico's like a little vortex. There are so many community organizations here that are doing amazing things, and this is one way for us to reach out to them and dream with them, like Lynn was saying. And so once the software is ready, I just know that we are going to be able to create a demonstration project, inspired by, similar to Portland, but very unique to Chico, that's going to bring more people, to be inspired by that. And then I see that what we're doing in Chico is kind of like a model and can be used in another community very easily, because, of course, we're saving all of our materials, and our everything we're using is replicable.
Uh-huh.
So it's like the franchise model.
Yeah.
But with a twist.
We have one more caller, and you'll have to be really quick because we have like maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm wondering if you would just fill out a little bit more detail on, because it seems that the foundation for making this work is the meeting of the basic necessities and the basic needs. And I'm wondering if you would elaborate a little bit further on a practical way, that some of the ways that that's going to actually be a reality for everyone.
Let me put one thought into your head, and maybe you can run with this. In the United States today, of the working population that's eligible for working, less than 70% of the eligible population actually is working. That means that they're going out and they're finding some kind of a job, or 2 jobs or 3 jobs, or whatever it takes to meet their basic necessities. If you actually got the remaining 30% of the people who were actually contributing positively to our gross domestic product, no matter how gross that actually is, I think that you wouldn't have an awful lot of trouble about meeting anybody's basic necessities. And that goes around the world. In our entire world, we have now over 7 billion people. In all of those spaces, you'll find that less than 60% of the people around the world are actually employed. And so if you actually free all of those people to start working productively rather than for money, and they just turn out productive.
So turn out houses like Habitat for Humanity.
Houses, turn out
information
food,
like
turn
Wikipedia.
Out clothing.
And then if you think that that's the human resource component, and then the material resources component in Copiosis, all resources are provided to the producers at no cost to them. So you're not paying to get the things done or to get the material so that you can do the things. It's all provided at no cost. And when that happens, the people who want to do the productive labor to assemble the material into goods and services we call necessities, it just happens. And then, of course, the algorithm rewards the people who are doing that, providing the materials and assembling the materials. Those people get rewarded with net benefit reward when the necessities are consumed.
Real quick, we have. Can we visit the Copiosis site in California? A caller wants to know.
The demonstration project or the website?
I'm not sure. Try both.
Yeah, they can always. Anyone in the world can go to the website at www.copiosis.com. And then, as far as the demonstration project that's launching down there, of course you can. You just got to get in touch with us, and we'll connect you with Erica, and then you'll be on your way.
So go ahead and spell Copiosis
for them. Copiosis Facebook page, which that's coming online very soon.
Yeah.
We don't have that yet, but I would love to talk to anybody interested in meeting us or gathering with our group here, so you can get in touch with us.
Okay, that's Copiosis. Yeah. A little bit sounds like a disease.
It is a disease. It's a positive disease.
Yeah. Right, we're diseased with what's going on now.
Yes, it's catching on like a epidemic.
I'm not at ease with what we have.
There we go.
Yeah. So basically then, it's like, just to get a little more like, okay, so we've got houses. This is houses now. We would somehow have the materials to make houses, but we wouldn't chop down too many trees or have. Somehow it still seems to me there's a lot of stuff to figure out.
Well, let's just take Portland or Oregon.
Okay.
There is enough vacant housing in Oregon to house all
empty
of the
buildings.
Homeless currently.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're simply not putting it to use. We've generated a scarcity.
Because it doesn't make money for people.
Right.
Okay.
The same thing goes with food. We've known since 1980 that we could feed every person in the world and not have a difficulty doing that. Our problem is our distribution system. So it's not that we don't have the resources. We have the resources. It's all about making the resources available and removing the disincentives for making it scarce.
Exactly.
That sounds great. Yes. Well, do you guys have any last words? Again, the website and.
I have just one thing that I'd like to one of my favorite quotes from Buckminster Fuller is that you never change things by fighting the existing reality. You change something by building a new model that makes the existing model obsolete.
Good
and that's what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
Sort of like, yes, just we're building up in the ashes of what's old.
That's correct.
It's been fascinating talking to you guys. Again, the Copiosis website is copiosis.com, right?